And hello, everybody. Welcome to another Blueprint of the New, how the months go by so quickly. My name is Alexis Sersha, and I come to you from far north Queensland, which is in Australia. So we've just had Equinox. It's an Equinox weekend. So we are going into autumn. So our nights are getting darker. Our nights are getting longer and our days getting shorter. But here where I am, sort of more in a tropical area, we don't actually have that much difference in the time, the day, in the length of the day, because we are so close to the equator. So our time changes perhaps an hour. So we have 1 hour in summertime. We have 1 hour more of the daytime, and in winter, in our winter, we have perhaps 1 hour or 1 hour and a half less. So we don't unfortunately have those really, really long evenings, which I miss from Europe because I grew up in Europe. And in Europe, in summer, you have those long evenings that go to 9 and 10 o'clock in the afternoon. We don't have that. So our evening starts perhaps between 6 and 7. It gets pretty dark, very dark very quickly, basically. So as soon as the sun sets, it starts getting darker. We don't have those really, really long, wonderful sort of evenings for when we could actually do things like they do in Mediterranean, where life starts perhaps at 8 o'clock in the afternoon in the evening in summertime. But these are just some of the changes, some of the different things that we experience. But we do feel, I feel a big change between the seasons. And we have, I think the indigenous say in this local area that there are about 6 seasons. um, I kind of see more three, there are kind of four-ish, but basically we have humid and wet because of the monsoon, or dry and mild summers. And summer here is kind of like in your kind of mm, like really humid and wet. And during the day, you can't really do much. Until you really get used to. And our winters are kind of like European balmy summers. So from like Central European summer, where during the day we have about 25 degrees, at night we have about maybe 19. When it gets really cold, it's 14. And we've had in the recent times sometimes 12, and we nearly froze. So your body changes to the temperatures, and it changes, to fit in with your environment. And basically your body is just an amazing being, because it can deal with so much, it can adjust itself to so many things, and it just does so much more than what the mass consciousness would have you believe. And like, it's quite exciting to be actually discovering that, how the body is changing, how much it's able to do, how much it's able to relax into things if you allow yourself, how much is able to integrate and flow and change with all of the changes that we are experiencing. I would also invite you, before we go get right into it, to check out my website if you haven't already. For those that are new, I welcome you. My website is alexissersha.com. There are lots of things on there. There are classes, private sessions if you wanted to book some. With the classes, I've started putting together 2 hour classes on fundamentals. There are two. One was channeled by Sandra Main, one by Michael, and added to that is also a private session. So it's like a little bundle. And then I do have longer 3 month courses coming up, which I think the next one is in September. Check out the dates, because my mind goes on a kind of little holiday during this kind, the webinars. Um, So check out the dates. It's a 3 month journey, and it's going to be with Mary Magdalene and Yeshua, and I'm really looking forward to that. Um, Also, there's a members area, so I keep adding to the library in the members area. I keep recording sparks from the field, and I keep uploading that. And recently, I've also added a heartbeat, the section that's which is called a heartbeat, where I just put little when I have a little messages, paragraph of messages, just to support your journey and to encourage you, which also they reflect also what I'm experiencing on that day. So if you haven't already, please check that out. It's $25 a month. You can cancel anytime, and even if you cancel, if you don't like it, you still get that 30 days access for that month. And also thank each and every one of you, those of you who keep donating and supporting this work, because without you this work wouldn't be able to continue. There are costs involved for the Zoom, or that has to be paid for this kind of things, and all of the technology equipment and everything else. And so thank you for donating. You know who you are. And it's also just an energy exchange, because you find that in this flow of abundance, when you come from the abundance, you can easily and freely give, because then it comes back to you. We keep flowing with this, and of course within a reason. You're not a fool when you are awake and aware and conscious. You're anything but a fool, and at the same time, you are a fool in a good way, because sometimes when I go out there, or I see something, of the mass consciousness, and even just of life in general, I nearly sometimes want to laugh at the joke of how I used to take everything so seriously, and of how, when you see people so seriously marching to that mass consciousness drum, it's actually quite funny when you look at it. And when you are finally outside of it. And so this is what we are, as we are going through this reset. It has actually been quite full on. And for me, my own personal experience with it was that couple of days. It was so intense, but intense because I haven't been as careful. And what I mean by that is that I haven't been flowing my energy. And what I've been noticing is that this energy, this times that we are now in, it really requires you to be present, me to be present with everything and things that are happening. And whether it could be that mass consciousness is pressing my buttons, it could be that another person is doing something that may be pressing the buttons that there are, or maybe is annoying me, or some pattern that is revisiting me, or anything like that. I need to just breathe as it happens through it, because the energy keeps, otherwise banks up, and it becomes quite uncomfortable, and it becomes very painful, and it becomes very hard on the body. But as I flow the energy through me, my energy, it is just the access to the depths of me, to who I am, to my soul self. And even though I don't perceive myself as separate, within me, I know when my I am that I am is present, where it steps forward, and it permeates all the different parts of me. And it is just such a pleasurable experience, because it's like that earth that perhaps is dry and crackly, and then all of a sudden this refreshing water, gentle water, just seeps through it, and all of a sudden that soil becomes alive, and it because the water just seeps through it. So these things that I'm speaking of really are an allegories, perhaps I can't remember the right word, because I can't really explain all of the different experiences that are happening within me. There aren't no words. And so many things just recently is just not making any more sense. Sometimes perhaps I go on Facebook, let's say, and someone has written something, and even though it can be beautiful, but if the person is perhaps, in a different space where I too was, and in the previous space I would be able to understand it, and I would be able to relate to it. In this new way, all of these things that so many that used to encourage me make no sense anymore. And they make no sense because the experience of being the I am that I am, of being present, of your greater consciousness, being present with you in the body here and now, is so different than what can be described. When perhaps I'm walking, and the presence kind of comes and goes in waves. It's not like a wave, it just, as in like a regular movement, but the presence comes, and then perhaps for a certain experience, and then it retreats a little bit, and then it comes again. And this presence, when I'm talking about it, is just perhaps due to the lack of the new words, but it's me, this presence. It's like, let's say, analogy again, if I thought that I was a hand only, let's say I thought I was only a hand, and all of a sudden, when I say the greater part of me, all of a sudden I realize, wow, I have two hands, I have a whole body, I have head, I have eyes, I have legs. You see, but before, for centuries and centuries and lifetime, I pretended that I'm a hand only. This is what I mean when I say that the greater awareness, this consciousness, this presence comes into awareness. So all of a sudden, just like if I thought I was a hand and all of a sudden became aware of my whole body, then all of a sudden I have access to so many senses, so many more senses, ways of perceiving a different point of view. While perhaps before, if I thought I was a hand only, I was only focusing on a touch, and all of a sudden I can hear, I can smell, I can see things, I can taste things, and all of a sudden I have another hand, and all of a sudden I can do so many more things, and all of a sudden I've got the two legs. So again, remember, this is analogy. So it is that you become aware of yourself as a greater self. And initially, it does feel quite strange to the human. And just recently, kind of memories, the body remembrances were coming up or bubbling up as I was remembering how I was when I was awakening, when you're that in that fresh new moment, when you're just first getting in touch with your soul, and your soul touches you the first time. How beautiful that is, and how precious and how pristine that is, in the world that is so full of suffering, where you have these sparks of life, these sparks of such love, that unconditional love, that it's really impossible to describe. And so I was kind of renewing, I was remembering and feeling and diving in, and then bringing up from within myself new awarenesses, new feelings, new abilities to see, to perceive, and my trust in my own self, and my trust in my greater self has just tripled to what it was. And again, you see, these kind of things, again, they don't make sense, because let's say if you asked me a few months ago, how I am trusting, how I am with allowing, how I am with everything, I would say I'm 100%, because at that time that was true. And this is the nature of being in this sweet now moment where, wow, there's just this awareness just goes out and you feel yourself expanding into your environment, into your things. But all that is all already you, it already is your energy. It's just this awareness kind of flows out, and you come to this gorgeous, precious, sweet now moment, which I allow to imbue me, to come to me. And it brings so many sensual awarenesses, so many sensual delights, such sweetness of sense of being, and the presence of myself, of my I am that I am, regardless of what words I use, or I don't use any words at all. It is just so pleasurable. It is just so pleasurable to be in this moment right here and feel all these things and feel my body and feel the magic of my body and just relax into it and relax into this space and find it safe. Now, this is just something that is just so precious to experience. And it does take a lot of work to get here, because you do have to integrate. You have to integrate so much. You let go of so much. You let go of who you were as a human being, because this human being that I am now is very, very different, completely different, unrecognizable to, let's say, who I was 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, I my mind wasn't able to imagine where I am now within myself. It wasn't able to imagine because it is completely out of the realm of the mind. It is out of the realm of its imagination. It is only, you get glimpses of this kind of world, of this kind of being. It is when you're in your dreams, perhaps, when you're fantasizing, perhaps you're involved, completely absorbed with an art form, with loving, with these kind of things. You get glimpses, but it is available now. It is available through through the valley of the darkness, which seemed to have gone on and on and on and on. And, just sort of looking at back, which basically is just remembering in the feelings, is just how much my human self really had no clue of what was going on. And I, as a soul self, and I, as a whole body, was guiding that process, was guiding that journey, was having an experience with that whole journey of the human and the soul and the I am coming together, like at first strangers, because the human part came from that space of thinking all of this is impossible to realize, it's impossible to know, it's impossible to feel. And from that space, then to go through the journey where all of a sudden you realize it is possible. It's not only possible, but it's a natural way of being. What an amazing journey. And it's only now that I can really appreciate what I've experienced. And yet, now there's a whole nother level, even though the level again makes no sense in this new way of being, because there are no levels. But what it means is that all of a sudden you're new with yourself again and again and again, because you choose the experience and then you dive into it. And that experience, it's new. And you're again 100%. You see, I was 100% 2 months ago. And again, I feel at the beginning, and I feel at the end, and I feel in the middle of it. Except that now I'm aware of all of the different parts. And yet, when I'm choosing, if I choose to, and yet there is still a surprise within it because it is new, and I just dive into it and I have no idea what is going to happen and how it's going to happen, except that because of the trust, I know it's going to be fun. It is completely tailored to myself in such surprising ways that through all of the experiences, I find something new over and over again about myself that I didn't know before. And so it's quite a different way of doing things. And sometimes when I do certain things and I move a bit somewhere here or somewhere there, and then I have no idea why, and all of a sudden, 2 days later I realize why. And I didn't even have to. My mind didn't have to plan for it. And you are ready to just take the opportunity, because as you're living in this now moment, the next opportunity comes, and all of a sudden you realize everything has aligned itself perfectly. And you just then do the steps, whatever is needed in that moment. You see, but perhaps a day before, I had no idea I was going to be doing this today. And some things do need some planning. You see, I still do have the mind, and yet the mind is doing things in a very different way, because it has taken its own space, its own rightful place, not as the boss, but as the whole part of this whole being that I am. And so the human too realizes. You see, because I still feel myself human, even though a very different human than before. Because this human, I still feel myself even more human actually than I ever did. Because I am able to, without fear, dive into experiences that present themselves, play with what is around me, enjoy in such an amazing way, and then invite I am that I am to come and join me. And even though I am one, I also experience myself as many parts. And so I could be perhaps looking at the raindrop on a leaf for hours. I could, because there is just in that now moment, there is just so much going on. And it is not overwhelming, it is in simplicity, it is in joy. Because as you've cleared the majority of stuff out, the ancestry, all of the things that we talk about in all of different classes and workshops and it all over, you see, as you've cleared out and integrated the aspects, and you're no longer afraid of yourself, and you're no longer afraid of life, and because it's all working for you, I still have little hiccups and things, because life is life, and it is good, because that I don't know what will happen next, because you then keep being surprised, you see. And you but you I'm always in this open space when I'm allowing things that perhaps in the old days I wouldn't think I would enjoy, and they present themselves, and I say yes, and I go into that experience, and I'm surprised at how much I'm enjoying that experience. So you see, the day, it does include everything. So for people that perhaps are under the erroneous idea that to be spiritual, let's say to be aware and awake and realized, means that you're peaceful. You are peaceful in one way always, because you trust, because you know who you are, and you always can get that overview. But you you also go through all sorts of different things. You go through, I go through the day through all the sorts of things, sensual things, beautiful things, but also through the frustrations, through the everything, because I'm living in a world that is full of mass consciousness. But I now know I have the skills and the abilities and the presence of my I am that I am, that I can allow to help me walk through anything, or rather, to help anything flow through me very, very quickly. And because in this new way, it doesn't, even if something is perhaps irritating or makes me angry, or frustrates me or whatever, I don't have to carry it, you see. Like perhaps, let's say, in the old days, I would carry it for a while, or it would ruin something. Someone did something or whatever. It could ruin my whole day because that would just completely take over. Now someone can upset me. Yes, the feelings come up, whatever comes up, and I realize, yeah, it upset me. I allow the energy with it to flow, and it moves on. And and I'm on to the next thing. Oh wow, look at this amazingly beautiful flower. And I can completely then engross myself into the interaction with that next moment that has presented myself itself, without that previous moment leaving any scars, any wounds, being not stuck in my body for maybe to deal with 10 years time. And even those things that now happened and upset me relatively, compared to, let's say, when I before the awakening, they are such tiny things compared to, let's say, that perhaps those that are still in the suffering are dealing with. you know Tiny things, like the little things that happen in a traffic. Perhaps someone just drives in front of you, or drives too close, tailgates at my back, you see, compared to things that other people are experiencing. It's nothing. And yet, because you are aware of everything and you feel everything so intensely, you see, because I'm not blocked anymore in the way that I used to be, that can come up, rise really full on. And yet I can, and I can allow it, feel it, acknowledge it, and then let it go. And it doesn't even leave any memories, any bad memories, you see, so that next time perhaps I would just keep remembering and regurgitating that, and then keep expecting it. Because I realize that with the newness, every moment can be new. It doesn't have to repeat. But you see, I'm having to be out of habits, outside of the habits, because the human self, the old, liked to do things, same things over and over again, because that's what made me feel safe. The same routes, the same things over and over again, you see. But now in this life, things keep changing, and I need to be able to then be in that space, to be able to say yes to the opportunity that happens. And then, rather than perhaps the mind has had a day planned, I just change with that, and then take that. And without any feelings of remorse, or anger, or any of that any of those kinds of stuff that in the old days would keep me stuck in the misery. inside, because perhaps something changed, and perhaps I decided I didn't like how it changed. And then I would keep going over and over in the mind. The mind would bring up the memories of the things that has happened in the past that were similar to that. And I would go down this route into the misery, into the suffering, and at the same time completely ignoring all these myriads and myriads of magical things that were happening around me, because I was in my mind, keep going over and over about the little 1 minute perhaps thing that happened. And this is such a trap that people are in, and that you unlearn how to, you see, you unlearn so many things, you let go of so many things, you allow all these new things to come in, you allow new beliefs, let's say beliefs, but just this ability to expect something to be different, to expect the new, to expect that things can change, to expect that things do change, and to flow with it and to go with it. So within me, I'm a very, very flowing. And when before I thought that I had to really be tight and make, go into this battle mode to make sure I get what I want, in this flowy thing I actually get so much more than I want. And it's much, much bigger because I'm so much bigger than what I ever thought. And so I had no idea what my likes and dislikes were of who I am, that I'm eternal. Even just that perspective changes so many things, lets go of so much fear. You see how differently. Feel yourself eternal. Allow yourself to feel eternal. Allow yourself for that part of you that is eternal, that knows that is eternal, to be present, to be conscious, to permeate you. And then you know what that feels like, because that comes into your awareness. It comes into your consciousness, and then you own it, and then you cultivate it. You see, you cultivate, you become this wonderful gardener inside. That's how I look at this thing, because I cultivate, I allow these wonderful things to grow, things that I want to feel, not things that mass consciousness tells me to feel. And as I'm doing things, and as I am allowing all this joy of life to be present in my day, I do hear the mass consciousness on the side saying, no, but you should be guilty. You should concentrate on misery. You should concentrate on suffering. Or look at all these awful things that are happening in the world. That says mass consciousness. And I can hear it at times. And I say, no, thank you. I don't identify with it. And I don't owe it anything, you see. And so I keep choosing all of my own garden, and I cultivate it. And like a gardener, and this again is an analogy, like a gardener, you see, from a human perspective, I don't have to get things that you put in the garden, that you plant in the garden, they grow by themselves. All you do, all you need to do is prepare the conditions, the soil, the fertilizing, the water. You prepare the conditions, you put the seeds, which would be the choice that you make. And then as you cultivate it, it grows by itself. You see, you don't have to think about how it's going to grow. You don't have to think about, okay, so now the cells are dividing, and now I'm going to have to divide more cells and make a leaf here and another leaf there. You see, you just let it miraculously, the plant, whatever you planted, grows by itself as you've created the conditions, as you put the seed in, or a little plant, tiny plant, and it grows by itself. It blooms by itself. It knows how to do this. You can just let it all go in that way, as long as you cultivate the conditions. And the conditions that you cultivate within yourself to cultivate your own garden is the breathing, is the flowing, is the choosing what you identify with. Absolutely be completely, totally, and utterly choosing what you want without compromise, without having to explain to anybody. You choose what you want, and you keep saying no to what's coming from outside of you, or perhaps from aspects. You say, and you just keep choosing what you want, and that's the seed. And then you keep cultivating that, meaning you take your time for yourself, you allow yourself to feel, you allow yourself for that presence of the I am that I am to be present. You allow the now moment to be present. And then within that, all of the things that your choice, your plant that you have planted will grow by itself. And it will grow. And this plant, in this, again, analogy, you almost sometimes don't know how it's going to develop. It's like you put the seed in, you cultivate it, create the circumstance, and not the circumstances, but the inner environment to support that choice. And then how, what it's going to, it will be a surprise what it's going to grow into, what it's going to bloom into. And it's going to be so much more than what you have imagined, even. Because while it's all of this is happening, I keep getting new awarenesses, new senses, new to me. They perhaps were dormant, perhaps I've always had them, but new to me, new ways of experiencing. And this is what can't be really described. It can't be the subtleties and the intensities and the preciousness of all of these experiences cannot be described. In the feelings that go through me, and the newness, and the presence of other beings, and just being able to continually see life in a new way, in other beings, in nature, in people, in all sorts, in things, in matter, in a chair, in a computer, in all sorts of things, you see. So what I will be, who I will be in 5 years time, even in this space, I wouldn't be able, I can't tell you, because of this newness, continually this newness. And this is how, this is perfect. This is just how it should, it's a beautiful way to be, because all of the worry and the concern in that way for the future, it's gone, because all of those potentials are right here with me. So the future is with me. The past is with me. It's all right here in the now moment. And yet I've got so many potentials, and because they keep growing as I'm becoming more aware, I have no idea how I'm going to be in 5 years' time. And yet I know it's going to be wonderful. I know that I'm going to be even more aware, if that's even the word, you see, um, because these kind of things, they don't make sense anymore. And I talk about them here in this space, and yet when I'm out there experiencing, my day, I don't I don't think about it. I don't talk about it. I don't put words. I just feel and sense and smell and just constantly are amazed at all the beauty that I see. And sometimes there isn't a beauty. I can see suffering and I can feel compassion. I can see and I can feel annoyance and I can feel compassion, because that compassion is keeping me free and is keeping the other person free, is keeping both of us free, because I'm not in imposing my view onto another being, and they cannot impose their view onto me, because we both choose our own reality. We are both souled beings, you see. So you honor another person wherever they are, and yet just your presence is able to enlighten their potential. Perhaps they don't even know it. Perhaps you just walk past them and they don't even know it. And all of a sudden, they see a way out. You see, because being in this way, it is not like being in the mind at all. Well, like when the mind would like to get the data, make the plan, prepare, you know, and you still use mind in certain ways for these things. Let's say, if you know that certain weather's coming, I know I have to go to the shop and prepare, you see, because you don't lose any of the abilities. You just have all of a sudden added onto you all of this extra awareness. That's kind of, again, like analogy, that's kind of how it feels. Because a lot of people think, they feel perhaps that they're not wanting to allow, because they fear that they will have to give up. You see, you give up only things that keep you in prison. You give up only things that kept you entrapped. You don't, you actually gain. You, even though when you're letting go of certain things, for the human, it is painful. It is very, very painful, that process at times. Because those things were such an integral part of being a separated human, because those things were what made human feel safe, secure, um, connected to what it could be connected. So it's very, very hard to let some of those things go. But then you realize that you haven't really let anything go. You've just transmuted it, transformed it into a much, much more golden, better, perhaps freer, sovereign, delicious experience, rather than something that would entrap you. So yes, it's a very, very, very interesting experience for the human. And a lot of the times when the human is part of yourself, doesn't feel, trust in trust yet with your soul self, with the I am that I am, all of that, it inside can bank up, and you can feel like something is chasing you, like something is trying to persecute you, because you feel it on the inside, you project it on the outside. But oftentimes all it is this, what feels like pressure from your soul self to say, hey, knocking on your door, I'm coming in, I want to come in, open up, allow yourself to be vulnerable, allow yourself to be flowing, allow yourself to let go of all of those constrictions and identifications that you have. Yes, you've spent a lot of time building those things up, because they kept you safe. That's they gave you the feeling, emotion, that you are safe. But remember, dear human, I, the soul, I am your safety, for I am eternal, and so are you, for you are part of me. So, how can you not be safe? For you, dear human, you will live forever. You change form, yes, but you are forever. So, how can you not be safe? Why, dear human, do you need all of those prompts and walls and battles and all of those things? They don't keep you safe, they keep you imprisoned. And yes, you wouldn't be able to navigate the world by yourself without those. But remember, dear human, I, your soul, am here now. And I can support you. And I love you. And I bring the safety, the feeling, the experience of safety that you seek, that you have sought for so very long, but you haven't found it in the world without the soul, have you? And especially now, as so much is changing, they're human, you don't find solace or safety in the old traditions, not in the weather, not in the earth, everything is by breaking down. You don't find safety in the structures of government, in all of those things that you thought that will keep you safe, that will bring you security. They're no longer. And it is for a reason. For dear human, I, your soul, am ready, am waiting patiently for you to open up. And for those of you who have opened up, know that there's always a new way to open up. There's always a next deeper way to connect, to know, to enjoy, to dance with your soul self, with the I am on the inside. And so there is no end to the adventures that you can have in this new way. There is no end to all the things that you can experience in this new way. And there are more and more and more people who also you can relate to. So you are not alone. Even though you do need, you always will need that time for yourself to take time away so that you can come back to yourself again. And you also are invited to take time away from your communications, from your media, because you will realize that that too is like a big cloud, is like a big consciousness that pulls you in. And it is great to be connected in this way, but disconnect for a time on a regular basis, because then you have that time. It doesn't constantly ask you to keep adding, you see, to keep doing, to keep talking, to keep something, because it can pull your energy in. So take your time when you switch everything off and you disconnect and be with what is present. And you realize that you are very fine, very okay, without constantly being pulled into this cloud of technology. And which is good, because it has brought a lot of good things. And at the same time, remember to take time away, to disconnect, to go for a walk, perhaps spend a day even without your phone. You'll see the world will keep turning to your surprise. You will find everything still happening, the news still being happening when you come back in a day. And you will be amazed how free you'll feel yourself, how different actually it is. Because what if you're constantly connecting to this cloud? You don't realize what it's like to be just you with you. So try it, play with it, because you will find that the more you do it, it is just such an enjoyable thing to be with yourself, to be with your life that you're creating, to be with all of the sensual delights that your life has. You see, because everywhere, whenever, wherever you are, whatever season, there's just so much beauty. Find it, discover it, sense it, feel it, taste it, and then come back and share, perhaps. Or keep it to yourself, keep it to your close ones. You see, there is this step into the sensuality of the year, not just a year, but of your new life. It is very available now, it is very present, it is right here. But it is nothing's going to happen unless you choose it, unless you do those things that need to be done. Because you see, some people, they mistaken, uh, like they think that there is no doing, because you see, when they say, okay, you're being now, not doing, but remember, you are both. You have integrated, some of you. So you don't even have to speak, okay, I'm a male, I'm a female, I'm this and that inside. You're whole. And the whole has both being and doing. But doing is in a very different way. You see, you choose, opportunities come, and then you do things that are needed to be done. Let's say if I want to go on a trip, I have to do the packing. There are things I have to book the hotel, even though perhaps it's come to me as a gift or whatever. You see, it matters not. You still physical, as long as you're physical, it will require doing. But why we used to concentrate so much on the being, and for many people, for those that are just starting to awaken, we talk about being, is because all they were doing, and they were doing in a very different way. They were doing to try to provide for the future that is out there, to try to secure the future, and always doing. We're not suggesting that. But remember that your reality does consist of both. And so for many people, they talk about, how will I be abundant? When is abundance talking about? Perhaps money, abundant. Yes, you allow it in, because you realize that you already are. There are parts of you that already are abundant. You allow that awareness into you. And yet, while you're still in the physical, you do need to create those kind of channels through which the abundance of money can then flow through to you. And perhaps for some, you will create that you win the lotto, and yet you still will need to do something. At least you have to have a bank account or something, you see. So you don't you're while you're physical, you're dealing with physical things. It's just in a very, very different way. And they don't take over. None of this takes over. It's just a small part of your daily life. You see, dealing with money, because it's not anymore about survival. Because why would you still talk about survival when you are eternal? You see, you don't have to fight for survival. So all of these things, as long as you cultivate that garden, meaning you allow the flow, you allow the now moment, You allow the presence of your soul self. You regularly falling back into your I am that I am. You see, then all, and then making those choices, choosing, then not identifying with all those voices, wherever they're coming from, that are saying, no, this is not possible, blah, 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 whatever. They're saying, you keep choosing, you allow, you change within you what needs to be changed. You see, whether all of a sudden you've chosen something you've never done before, a belief may come up that says, no, no, this is not possible. You deal with it, you dissolve it, you move it into neutral, you allow this newness to come through. You see, that's kind of what your work is. And it is work, quite a work, especially if you live in the city, close to mass consciousness, close to people, because they do pull you, the mass consciousness keeps trying to pull you in. And maybe you're tired or something, you can get pulled in, but you very, very quickly unpull yourself, unplug yourself when you notice, you see. And you go through all of the things, and perhaps some intensities, and new levels of new everything, but you just are able to deal with anything with that ease, with that grace, because nothing, you have a completely different demeanor, completely different way of dealing with things. And remember, you are eternal. Feel it, own it, live from that, and see how different everything becomes, how different your life becomes, because you have such different perspective. And all of a sudden, how many potentials, well, how you become aware of, how all these potentials that you had no idea were there before, because you were just so narrowly just focused on one thing, and because you are not allowing yourself to explore yourself, to find new things about yourself, to be flexible with with things, and that you might enjoy something that perhaps you had no idea that you were enjoy that you would enjoy. Had you not tried, if you haven't tried it, you wouldn't know. So today was a very kind of practical way of talking about, all of these things that you come across in a daily life, and how to deal with certain things, and how to flow with things. You see, dear friends, this is your new life. So you will always need to allow that to flow, so you can just, you see, perhaps for some it may still become like a feel as a chore. But when you, because you keep hitting all the old blocks, and you keep hitting perhaps strong aspects and things that are in your body, from wherever, from your ancestry, from this life, from trauma, from all sorts of things, you keep hitting that. But I invite you to keep staying with that, and just to keep flowing, to keep breathing, because you see, your new way of life, the connected way of life, it is this being open, and keep breathing, and keep flowing, and keep letting go, and keep choosing. But it's a joyful, I can't describe how joyful it is to be this free, to be this sovereign. I could laugh, I could just sometimes jump in the middle of the road, because I see, not to rub it in people's face, but because I just see in others the suffering, the misery, the prison, the imprisonment of the old ways. And still there, I can remember then what it was like, and how different it is to be outside of that prison. I would never, never, never go back for anything. There is not anything in the whole universe that I would exchange how I am now to being caught in the matrix, to being caught within the box of the mind. There is nothing in there that is worth keeping. You see, that didn't transform into something new. So I invite you, even though, as I said, so many things are very strange to the human, but take on that spirit of curiosity and spirit of exploration rather than, oh no, another thing has come for the integration, you see. And then you can sail through it, even though it can be intense, it can be painful, it can be hard for the body. Perhaps you got a flu, perhaps you got a cold, perhaps you've lost things, you've lost friends, you've lost family members, they've turned away, you see. But everything, all of these things with your soul present, you can walk through all of it and you realize just how strong you are, how invincible you are in this way, because there is nothing but nothing that can that can destroy you. For remember, you are eternal. And even, just realizing and being a witness to your own self as you're going through these things, as you are dealing with it, and perhaps something happens over and over again, and you deal with another layer, and you realize, wow, look at the things I've walked through and walked out, and look at me. I'm more whole. I have more well being now more than ever. And look at the things I've experienced. And there is nothing, there is no wound. There perhaps are scars, and you can share the scars and with others, and you can giggle and laugh about them because you're not in that misery anymore. And so, for the human, when you feel that pressure, perhaps, and you know something's coming, your soul, you breathe, you allow your consciousness, you allow your awareness, you allow that vulnerability, you allow that inner nakedness of self with self. There is no more shame, there is nothing to hide. And when you come to those spaces that feel shame, that feel guilt, notice them and allow them, love them, let them go, and then see what happens. There is just so much to experience, so much that is right there, just a breath away, when you choose and when you allow. Okay, so let's see now. If we have some questions. I had a question that was emailed. So recently, I felt an ability to socialize with people normally again. I was having fun, staying within balance, but in that interaction, someone came and tried to exert power games and control over me. Afterwards, I felt an extreme anger and resentment rise against this person. What did I do to cause this situation? How do I draw boundaries and express angers in situations and environments where they have the authority or the advantage? And how do I integrate an aspect that I have tried to integrate for so long? Sometimes, oh, I'm going to just have some tea. Oh, so nice. Sometimes you just let that aspect be. You realize yourself that you can be a lot and a number of different things at the same time. There are some parts of yourself that are so deeply embedded, meaning that you are identified yourself so deeply with, that sometimes it can take some time before that final layer comes up for integration. It will, because you have chosen, you are on this journey. So how do you in the meantime deal with those kind of tricky situations? Like for me, oftentimes I thought, oh my God, how how can I go out into the world, into the shop, just walking around even now, because you lose the ability to not be real, to not say things that you really feel like. And I found that actually I needed to express the anger. Anger is one of those things that needs to run. There's just so much energy involved with it. So do something that makes you feel good. You don't put it on hold. So for example, let's say if you don't trust yourself, that perhaps initially you can't in this way trust yourself, because you see the anger that is coming up maybe from parallel lives, maybe from earlier this life, maybe from all sorts of situations. So maybe you're being triggered based on something that has happened in the so-called past, and it can actually be a full-on overreaction to what is actually happening. So what you can do, you realize that you can put things on hold. So initially, depending on how you are with anger, you can then go and perhaps walk up the big hill, walk up long steps, just so that you breathe. And in that breathing, you can feel that anger arising, and keep letting it go, keep letting it go. And it will have pictures and it will have things for you. And within it, it also has a gift, because it will bring that awareness of what, where it started. So the understanding, the knowingness of what is going on. And then you will be able to deal with the person in a much more objective manner, because that situation then comes to the present moment. So rather than you perhaps overreacting to something that has happened, all of a sudden you realize, wow, this person was just reminding me of someone, but what they didn't really need such a huge overreaction on my part. So what they did is nothing at all. You see, so some of the things, some of the situations in that way dissolve by themselves, because it was just a trigger. And the other person will feel that something has changed in you, and their behavior towards you will change, or what they're doing no longer triggers you, or if they're in authority over you. If you see, this also can actually be anger, because as you're coming into your own sovereign space, you realize that nobody is in authority over you. In your space, in your sovereign space, you are the authority, the only authority. But because we are choosing to be here with the mass consciousness, you see, you need to then change the relationship with whatever that you're dealing with. So for example, if this is a situation at work, at your job or your school or wherever you are, then you still, for a time being, perhaps you need to go to that job, but you change the relationship. So you realize that you'll choose to go to this place, and while you're there, you know that there are certain rules, like when you go on the road, there are certain rules for the society to operate. You don't have to be angry that there are traffic lights, for example. You see, so you change, because then you realize, okay, so I've chosen to go to work. This is serving a purpose at the moment, and I can, within that structure, follow the rules of other people. That doesn't take away anything from your sovereignty, you see, because as you are on this journey, all of a sudden you lose any fear of survival. All of a sudden, as you are being, all the things that we've talked about, you realize more potentials, so that perhaps, you will be able to let go of that job, or it will change to such a degree to fit who you now are. So you will be able to be so free within the job, and you will see, because firstly, you stop playing those power games, so other people don't play. They're not interested in you to play the power games. um, Secondly, you realize that there is nothing to fear, you'll always be okay. And that completely changes. You become a very different person compared to other people. You see, you allow yourself then to get away with so much more because you're not afraid anymore to lose the job. You don't have to basically lick anyone's ass, kind of thing. So everything changes. So if you allow yourself to bring yourself, your awareness into that job, it will change. People will change. And sometimes, yes, people will still trigger you. And sometimes you won't be able to not say something, but just remember to, to be in that space where it is when you say stuff that is relevant to what's happening now rather than reacting to the past. And again, no one else can tell you that, but you feel it. You feel it, you experience it, you deal with the anger in some kind of physical way, punching the pillow, maybe, whatever works, something physical, and you get to know your anger. And then you become a master of your anger. It doesn't control you anymore. Because you see, anger is a it's very present in all the people because of the nature of the matrix, the nature of mass consciousness. Because within that 3D environment, you had to suppress so much of you. And so that a lot of anger has built up, whether it, as I said, has to do with the past life, all of the traumatic experiences, all of the power games, the authoritarian, all whatever, we don't even need to know. Just know that yes, even rage, animosity, all of those things do come up, not only in relation to other people, but from a human self to the soul. There's a lot of anger there because human, remember, felt abandoned, felt all sorts of different things. Become friends with your anger. Allow it, deal with it in a healthy way. Don't suppress it. It will bring with it the messages, the pictures, the sounds, the memories you of know, and so you will know what it's about. You see, and this is also how you build trust with yourself, because all of a sudden you realize that there is nothing within you that you have to fear, that you are safe. You deal with all of these intense emotions. You are the master of your inner space, and you don't have to suppress anything anymore. And with the knowingness, the more you deal with your own knowingness, your own paths bringing wisdom to you, bringing that knowledge to you, the more then you can trust yourself, the more then you find all these different ways within to work with anything. And then in that way, you become really able to, you become master in your own life, that you can deal with any situation. And yes, other people will still, cause you to feel anger or whatever, but you can then deal with these things in a much more gracious way, in a much healthier way, and in a way that doesn't cause wounds to yourself nor to others. Thank you, dear one. Okay, let's see, we've got some more questions. I have enjoyed some alone time with myself. However, it's been frustrating. I am more aware of my victimhood. Some releasing has occurred. I am more observant too. My body is not able to handle these changes due to disturbances of the nervous system and spine. I'm contemplating healing myself in non physical realms. Some parts of me want to face this part of myself while incarnated. How can I discern when it is time to stir more trust and courage versus letting go of the body? Dear one, when we are on this journey, the victimhood is huge. Don't be yourself. This, like, just accept that it is part of this journey. Just like anger, you see, when we, all of us, played in the 3D reality, and victimhood and anger, all of them are the traits that come with that. Now, with the victimhood again, when you realize, you see how much of the victim you've played. And again, this is not just you. Know that you're not alone in this, all of us. You see, when you first see, when I first saw, and it's not just once that you see how you played victimhood, it's like an ongoing process. When you realize, oh my gosh, I've been a victim here, oh my gosh, I've been an abuser here, this is, these are those steps out of the 3D. It is not, you know, it's not just yourself. So even just that knowledge, that dealing and being able to see, and sometimes being completely shocked at just what a victim I played at, and how good I was at playing, and how good I was at hiding that in front of myself, especially, you know, those kind of realization can actually, sometimes for a week I couldn't believe that that was me, you know, because in your mind you have a certain image of yourself, and then when you actually realize, know that when you actually realize this, celebrate, because this is freeing you. Every time then you realize that you've been a that you played a victim in something, celebrate it, because you freed yourself from another thing. It does have, it can have a big, um, uh, it does have big influence on the body. So if you can go easy with your body, baths, long baths, and do things like that. Now, with the choice that you're asking whether to do it in a physical or non-physical world, um, you see, you'll need to choose the realization while you're here. Now, when you are this present, more and more present with yourself, more and more in touch with yourself, you see, you don't transition without your soul self knowing, without your I am that I am being totally okay, whether you decide choose to stay or whether you choose to do it in a non-physical realms, or whether you choose to come back. These are the questions that perhaps, you know, somewhere where they're just playing with the spirituality, and they're not they're still afraid to talk about these kind of things. But all of us, me included, on a regular basis come to this place where I ask myself, even when life is enjoyable, I still ask myself, okay, so do I choose to stay or do I choose to transition? And it is simply also sometimes because we are alongside the 3D, or perhaps, you know, the body is not 20 anymore and things like that. You know, there are this kind of choice, and you really look at at perhaps dying right in the eye. You do actually in this journey look at it quite a few times. When you allow yourself to really realize there is no veil, and all of that is present already now, and yet at the same time there's a lot of work to release, which is full on for the body. It is quite, the body is very involved and has to process. This is the choices that only you can make, that only you with your presence of your soul, with the I am that I am, can make. Don't allow anyone else to make these kind of decisions for you, and also don't allow anyone to make you stop contemplating these things, you see, because when you are feeling into these things, you're not actually acting on anything. Like with the previous question, you see, you can feel anger, you don't actually do anything, because as you come in conscious, as you become conscious with these things, you become conscious of all these different options. And it's not that you don't choose painful options anymore. So these things that you are asking, you know, allow yourself, which is what you're also doing, to feel into them, invite your soul self, invite your I am to feel into them. And you will see, because you're no longer afraid. You start losing, as you're feeling into all these potentials, you start losing fear. You start losing all those old overlays, all those old rules, all those old bondages to do with all of these kind of questions. All of a sudden, perhaps a book comes your way, perhaps a person comes your way that can, that perhaps inspires you to something, or has an answer, or your own knowingness comes up from deep inside of you. Because you will know, you see, as you're allowing yourself more to be of who you are, you will know the right choice. You will know all of the potentials, all of the different choices that you have. But yes, allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to contemplate all these things, allow yourself to visualize, and allow yourself also to visualize yourself being healthy. Because you see, where all of these potentials, that one of them, at least, not but a number of them, have you as being healthy as well. You know of those people that have had so-called miraculous instant healings, and all sorts of things like that. You see, that is possible for anybody. It is just whether that's the right pathway for you, that is the right pathway to choose. You, within you, choose it, and then do what needs to be done in the work that we discussed earlier, in allowing, in all of this, in self, in loving the self. You see, even if the body doesn't always, is not healthy, you still can have a very enjoyable life. You see, I'm not a 20-year-old either. My body has certain issues. A couple of years ago, I had a virus, a tropical virus, and all sorts of things. And I dealt with them, and I realized, actually, I was just thinking about that yesterday, how I don't even feel the pain. Even if let's say, just living your daily life, some pain happens in the body. I have a completely different experience. I know there's something wrong, but it's not a pain, and I can just tolerate. It's not like, oh my gosh, I have to sit down because this is so painful. It just feels in a very, very different way. Uh, so and there are so many different potentials, and like I mentioned before, we don't know what we're going to be like in 5 years time. So I would invite you that yes, do not be afraid to feel all of the options that you have. And you may have to keep re-examine and re-examine and re-examine, and you don't have to make any choice until you feel that yes, I want to make that choice. You can, but always you can choose to self-love. Always you can choose to allow the presence of your soul. Always you can choose to allow this awareness of you as I am that I am. You see, even the body that perhaps is not as well as you would like, that doesn't stop you from feeling all of who you are. And and that, know that the presence, the I am that I am, is not hindered by any neurological conditions. It's not hindered by anything. See, so allow yourself to dream, allow yourself to visualize, allow yourself all of the presence and the awareness of all the different potentials. And then you will be in a much better way to choose. And that choice doesn't have to be today, tomorrow. That choice perhaps today doesn't include that choice. You see, you are no under no pressure from anybody, and don't allow anybody to give you pressure of anything. You feel it. You allow the knowingness. You allow yourself the freedom to choose whatever you choose. And that includes the freedom to dream more than what the doctors tell you, more than what what your condition tells you. Because remember, we are now in miraculous times. There is no end to what we can actually, what is possible. So allow yourself to dream a healthy body, allow yourself to feel a healthy body, and then allow yourself also that presence of your choice. Because as you allow the presence of your choice, as you own it, that gives you a whole different freedom, you see. And that freedom brings the lightness of being, and the lightness of being brings the awareness of so many options. Lightness of being brings self-love. Lightness of being completely changes your body, changes the cells in your body. They have the self-healing capacity. There is nothing that they can't heal from. Remember, Yeshua, he could look at someone in the eye that was dying. He brought, no, he didn't bring them back to life. He didn't heal them. He invoked their own ability, belief that they can heal themselves. And but some chose not to, because that wasn't their path, you see. So perhaps I would invite you to invite Yeshua closer and allow his presence to be with you, because he can show you that place within yourself where health is possible. Thank you, dear one. Um, you have already addressed some of my question. Okay. The next one, dear Alex, thank you for that fitting message. I have no questions, for first I have to deepen the experiences with all the topics you mentioned. Blessings, HC. Thank you, dear one. And you are experiencing amazing things, and you are allowing, and you are feeling, and you are being vulnerable. There is just so much that is changing for you. There is just so much that you are allowing. You are allowing yourself to realize the master that you are, the Merlin that you are. Allow this reset to show you even more of who you are. Thank you. All right. And I think we are at the end of all of the questions. So, from all of me and all of my team that works with me, thank you, each and every one that is watching this now and watching this later. And enjoy yourself. And most of all, love yourself. Thank you.